Fantastic. Congratulations on a very successful development. I've sort of driven past it and watched it grow over its period. The question I have is, through the entire life of the development, what would you do differently next if you had that brief today, from a feasibility right through the delivery and passing on? What would you do differently today?
Well, thanks, Medy. It's a good question. I think in reality, there's probably detail that we'd do differently, but holistically, I think we probably got it pretty right. Some of the challenges for us on this project in particular were, if you think back to 2009 and 10, they were pretty challenging marketing times, and getting a mixed-use precinct delivered quickly with the amenity was one of the great challenges we had. But I think to answer your question holistically, I'd say we got the framework pretty right. There's some details we'd do better.
You had some pretty significant site decontamination to deal with. I'm interested if the complexity of doing that had a major impost on the cost of the development. The reality is contamination on the site was not a significant issue for us. We did take the decision, however, early on to decontaminate the site and have the site deregistered. And we wanted to do that particularly from a marketing perspective with the residential units there. But it wasn't, it was pretty low-level contaminants. The bigger challenge, I think, for the team was that the site certainly sits on in quite deep river silt, groundwater impacted river silt. So one of the great innovations that you certainly don't see on the video is that rather than building independent basements under each of the buildings, is that fairly early on we decided to consolidate those basements and move it back into the broader part of the site and the area of the site with the slightly better ground conditions. And it allowed us to quite significantly reduce the costs and the perimeter of the cased secant walls in that case, and allowed us to make what was a really significant decision for the development to build that whole basement up front. So all the car parking was done up front for all the buildings that followed, and that was a very significant decision for the project.
Sure. In your commercial tower, A grade, a little bit out of town, why do you think you're able to attract your tenants to this particular site?
Look, it's a very good question. I mean, there's a few parts to that. First of all, exposure. Obviously the way we organise the site, we put the commercial building on with a frontage to Kingsford Smith Drive, and that's a very significant. Many people would know here, but a very significant link between the CBD and the airport. There's 65,000 cars a day going up and down that road. The Council and the State Government have committed to widen that road as well. The tenants knew this, and that work will start in 16 and 17, so there'll be significantly more volume traversing that roadway. But a couple of other layers were that the site's actually within a blue chip location with Hamilton, Racecourse Road and the like, and that was attractive to them. And the building itself had unencumbered, large floor plates, which at the time were quite unusual in Brisbane. So the 1,400 square metre floor plates. And so obviously the caveat is that, we were talking to a tenant pop who didn't need or desire a CBD location. They want to be, closer to their supply chain. And the access to the city and to the airport was very helpful. We've got some tenants in there, for example, like Domino's Pizza, who have now headquartered themselves there, but they also like the idea of having a retail front within the retail main street that we've provided there as well. So horses for courses, but prominence was a big drawcard.
Gavin, from an innovation perspective and moving forward to the next development, what would you do differently on that site? You've obviously picked up, you mentioned that site was, you sort of hit the nail on the head, but what would you do next differently from an innovation perspective?
Oh, we may not do the resort garden, but look, I honestly, the real trick in this one was mixed-use sites are quite difficult. This was a transformation of an industrial site on a busy road, and we weren't the first in the Portside precinct, but we were one of the early leaders. And we launched this in 2010, so GFC was very much upon us, and we needed to deliver the amenity really quickly. So organising the basement the way we did allowed us to very cost effectively put the smaller Main Street retail above that as a lid. It also dealt with some other issues like flooding, but it also allowed us to contemporaneously build the first residential building. So we were out of the ground whilst we were doing the basement on those residential buildings. So, within 2 years, by 2009 we lodged the first DA on this. By 2012 we had completed and we're settling 450 units, and the retail space was done, and we had the last tower and the commercial building under construction. And so being able to demonstrate to the buyers and the tenants that the amenity was in place is the key to actually doing these mixed-use sites really well.
In regards to the apartments and the mix, did your research people come up with the right mix, do you think, when you were planning it? Now that it's built and it's constructed, are the inquiries that you're getting reflecting the apartments that you've got there for?
Look, I'd love to say it was perfect, but I'd be lying. But we got it pretty right. I think the innovation was that in 2010, again, I've talked about the market. The team were pretty courageous. They took a view that with the market the way it was, that we'd actually really challenged the sizing of the apartments at that time. And it paid dividends. It really did appeal to the local investor market who liked the blue chip prominence of the site. And I guess the test is at that time in 2010, we sold 90% of the stock that we had in a really difficult market. We had the biggest project facility as a result, a dev facility in Australia at that time. We had $230 million of buildings under construction. So it's a pretty good test, and there's bits and pieces we'd probably improve on, but I think in the main there's a lot of courage and a lot of foresight at that time, which paid dividends.
Have many apartments changed hands since it was finished?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't have the figures. There's been a few. Actually, to my knowledge, not that many.
That's great.
There's been a few. They're all sold, of course, which is good.
Excellent.
John, you got anything else? In terms of how did you find working with the council up there, and did you have issues being such a large mixed-use project in an area that's going through change? How did you find working with the council?
Look, I think one of the really important keys as we see more and more of these mixed-use precincts is that there needs to be a level of flexibility in the structure plan and the way the authorities approach this. And certainly on this particular site, the ULDA at that time took quite a commercial approach to that. Our master plan changed over that short period of time, and they were quite commercial about that. So they clearly had the objectives of the mixed-use precinct in their mind, but they allowed us to massage the master plan and massage the uses to make sure that we were delivering it to market. The biggest risk for developers and the authorities is that with these mixed-use precincts in particular is that they stall and the amenity doesn't get delivered and the whole thing starts to become very problematic. But the ULDA were the consent authority in this case, and they were very commercial, and it was a good relationship.